Welcome back, brothers and sisters. In today's video, I'm going to give a response to this Reddit post I saw. For the love of gods, give your DM something. And the post is more about when your DM asks you, what are your expectations for the campaign? What are your expectations for your character? You want to give them a better answer than just whatever. And they're like, I know players don't want to be pushing and all that kind of stuff. This video, though, is, I guess, maybe more semi-adjacent to the main topic. I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to feel confident and comfortable in your character to give awesome, epic descriptions of your actions so that when you get your turn and you're asked, how do you want to do this? You don't just say like, well, I just do a perception check. Well, I just attack the goblin. Like, I want you to be able to do something awesome. So I'm going to give you 4 tips for that. Before we jump into that, though, do not forget the Doom Stronghold, my current Kickstarter for a zine filled with random tables to generate strongholds for your players to inhabit and to generate adventures themed around them and the NPCs to run within them. It's live on Kickstarter. It's fully funded. We've hit 3 of the 4 stretch goals I've come up with so far, so we've got good momentum going there. So if you want to support the church, best way to do that is to pay your hobby tithing and leave a like, and then go check out that Kickstarter page. But with that out of the way, let's jump into this video and let us pray. Tip number 1 for giving some awesome character descriptions when you're playing D&D is to give your character a surname or a title when you're generating them. I know it is very easy when we're trying to come up with our name to just go to Fantasy Name Generator, press the button, and just take whatever name it gives you. But oftentimes I find that they're either just kind of like a very basic medieval-esque sounding name, or there's some fantasy name that is way, like, it's too hard to pronounce, and you just end up, it doesn't like really give you anything. That's the main problem with it. It doesn't offer you anything, whereas a surname or a title does a lot of the heavy lifting for you when it comes to inspiring and calling to mind cool descriptions for your character. For example, let's say I wanted to play a barbarian, and I went with Gorthrak the Hogshead. Already, if I'm imagining some big, burly, ginormous barbarian and his name or his title is the Hogshead, then I'm imagining someone who maybe has some like tusk-like teeth, or he's incredibly hairy with like bristly, fibrous hair. When he's eating, he's just sloughing things into his mouth, drooling, and he's an absolute mess. When he sleeps in the mud with boars maybe. When he's at the tavern, he's like, I'll just sleep out in the back if I can get it for cheaper, right? When he's in combat, he is tackling characters into the grime and the filth. After battle, he's smearing off the vicar and the blood of the dragon that he just slayed, maybe slurping it down. He never showers, he never bathes, he never cleans his weapon. I got all of that in my head just barely from giving him the description, the Hogshead, because that's just cool. And maybe even, here's another one, maybe he carries around a severed hog's head. Or maybe he wears like Chainsaw Massacre style, a hog's head as a mask in battle, or it's some sort of like piece of armor. That little tiny bit of description and that little bit of effort that you can put into giving yourself that title will allow you to run endlessly with fun descriptions and get you in the mindset of the character. If the character's name was Garnesh Grufenthrar and it was just some fantasy name, it's like, okay, that does nothing for me. Maybe it sounds cool, but it doesn't do anything. Another example of like a surname is just, for me, I usually think of that as just take two cool words and smash them together. Arthur Proudsword. That's a very common one. I've probably used that on the channel before, but when I am playing a paladin and I give them the name of Arthur Proudsword, I immediately, and I'm sure you can too, call to mind a way to roleplay this character. Proudsword. Maybe they're a little bit egotistical, a little pompous. They have the big wolf fur cloak that's billowing in the wind. They have the giant broadsword they lean on their back, and they they laugh at everything. They're very boisterous and confident. They never let their enemies see them waver or be afraid. And if they suffer the frightened condition, that is like one of the worst things that can happen to them. They're humiliated by that. In the eyes of their adventuring party, they maybe feel like a failure, and they need to repent for that. They need to win back their honor and favor. They're like collecting all of their gold to buy a suit of golden plate mail to fit the name Proudsword. They want like a magical +3 flame tongue sword. That's like their end goal for the campaign. Again, I am calling all this to mind right now just with these 2 little words, Proudsword. Very, very fun. Best tip I'm probably going to give in this video is to give your character a surname or a title. Tip number 2 to have epic descriptions for your character is to really understand the value of a turn in D&D. Especially, this is a lot easier to do, and if you're a game master watching this, like this is going to lean into why I think it's so important to play in initiative order and give every player a turn. But as a player, your turn and your action is not just something for combat when you get to do a little bit of damage. You should internalize and really commit as like part of your player oath of like, my turn is the moment I get to bring my character to life. Nobody else is going to do it for me. I need to be the one on my turn to really like push myself creatively to come up with a cool description, to not just settle with the basics and expect my game master to do it all for me. Because if you're leaving your games a little disappointed or like, I just am not very excited, like that could certainly be on the DM side. They're just not bringing it to the table. But also a bit of that's going to fall on you. You need to know that an action isn't just something in the rulebook that gives your game a little bit of structure. It is a thing. Your turn is yours. It is the single opportunity you will have where the spotlight is entirely on you. And that doesn't mean you have to treat it as like some huge mega performance for some giant stadium. You're not like in Dimension 20, right? That's not what I mean by spotlight. What I mean by spotlight is like, hey, I get to do what I want in this moment, and I get to describe how I go about doing it. And if you just give the idea of an action and a turn sort of the reverence that I think it deserves, immediately I feel like you'll just have a better sense of the weight on you on your turn in a good way, though. Like this sort of like pressure at your back of like, get in there, go on, do something cool, instead of just like, oh, it's my turn, my roll, okay, off to the next person. Like, boring, lame, not what you want. Own your turn. Tip number 3 is that not every action, not every spell, not any singular thing your character does in your game needs to be the same as what everybody else does. A spell is a very easy example and a way to kind of explain this. Let's think about the spell Zone of Truth. You show up in a community, there's some murders going on, and you kind of find everybody in the town hall freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on. And you're like, well, I've got this Zone of Truth spell. It is very easy to just in the moment be like, I cast Zone of Truth, and I'm just going to ask these people, did you do the murder? And okay, there we go. Yeah, solve the crime, right? Is that very epic? Is that like a cool description? Not really. Think about your character. If you're playing maybe like an inquisitor type character, and you want to be the person that is grilling people for answering, you're prying into their souls and their very being to figure out if they're pure of heart, then when you use your Zone of Truth spell, are you going to just cast it willy-nilly in the town hall, or are you going to work with your adventuring party and work with the mayor to set up a sort of interrogation type scene? And this is not something where you have to go NPC by NPC by NPC and do this. It can be part of your description, but maybe you go out to the barn house, the old ruined barn house at the edge of town. Nobody really owns it, and you go in there, you set up a single lantern hanging from a chain. Maybe you have a couple hooks hanging around. You have your holy text laid out on the floor in front of a single bench where each NPC kind of throughout the day that you're doing these interrogations walks in, they enter into your Zone of Truth, and as they do so, you say to them, you have stepped into the domain of the God-Slayer's word, and they will know if you tell the truth, and they will smite you where you stand. And then you like ask them these questions to kind of, figure out if they did it. That is so much cooler than just, I cast Zone of Truth. Are they lying? That is, oh gosh, that would be so boring in a game. I would just be like, lame. Like, no, this is, building everything together of the tips I've given so far. You have a cool title or a surname. Maybe you're the God Slayer, whatever that even means to you. But as part of your inquisitorial title, you're the God Slayer. Then you know that on your turn, you get to take some ownership and do something awesome. And then tip number 3 here is to not let your use of a spell or an action be the same as everybody else's. Think about how your character would do the action, not what the action or the spell is, not just what the rules say it does, but how do you go about doing that thing? Another example, just for the hell of it, if you've got Fireball as a spell, a classic one, is it always just I point my wand or I point my finger and it shoots a ball of fire and it explodes? I mean, that's what it says in the rulebook it does, right? But like, what if you're a sorcerer and you didn't study the magical formula of Fireball? Yours is a little bit different. Then maybe for your character, when your magics kind of bubble up within you, it's like this agonizing, terrifying experience that causes you to just just scream out and beg for these magics to leave your body. And when you scream, that's when this like the spark of arcane fire forms wherever you would have targeted the spell, and then as you build in volume with the scream, the fireball roars out even louder, and it burns away everybody in the space as they're also cupping their ears and being reduced to ash. It's still a fireball spell, but it's your fireball spell. And my final tip for impressing your game master with some epic character descriptions is to just ask if you can try. I think maybe a lot of groups default, or a lot of players default to the idea of like, I'm going to just tell my DM what I'm doing and then they're going to do their cool descriptions. I'll be honest, at my table, I love doing descriptions. It's one of my favorite parts about being a DM, is getting to like really build off what my characters and then my players give me and making them feel as awesome as they possibly can. But that doesn't mean that I don't let them kind of start the description and give me a direction of where I can take it. And you might think like, I'm nervous. I'm not very creative. I'm not ready to do all this. Okay, I disagree. I think you're wrong. I think you are just inexperienced with it. And so this tip of ask your game master if you can do the description is really, the tip is just like practice. Ask your game master if you can practice with them while you're playing the game. You might kind of fumble it, or you might be like, can I try that? Can I give a little description here of how I do this thing? And your DM be like, yeah, go for it. Let's hear it. And then you might be like, actually, I'm sorry. Like nothing's coming to mind. I'll think about it for next time. Hey, you know what? As far as I'm concerned at my table, you at least gave it a shot. And if you get kind of a little overwhelmed or you just like draw a blank in the moment, that's fine. But to me, all I care about is that I know you are invested enough in your character to want to attempt it. And then we're going to workshop this over the course of sessions. You're going to get more and more comfortable in the shoes of your character, and you'll be able to do this at some point. These descriptions that I've been pulling out of my head in this video, like I've been playing D&D for 10 years, and by no means are these like the coolest, best descriptions ever. But like I'm at least confident in the moment to just attempt it and pull something out of nothing. And you can get there too. You just have to practice, and you can do that by asking your GM, can I give this a go? So there you go. Those are my 4 tips for how to give some epic descriptions for your character actions when you're going into a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And not only do I think you will impress your DM, I think you will impress your other players and probably inspire a few of them to do the same thing, to try and not step up like it's, I don't want to make this out to be something bigger than it really is, but so much of the fun in D&D comes from the use of our words and our fun descriptive language, and you as a player have a decent amount of responsibility to contribute to that, I think, if you want your game to be truly epic. If you're just beers and pretzel and you're just like showing up for fun and it's not like an exercise of getting into another character and you don't really lean into the theatrics of it, then that's also fine. But if you look at games like Critical Role or Dimension 20 or Dungeons and Daddies, any of them, and you think, man, I wish our group could be more like that, then I think a few of these tips are where that starts. So take that into account as much as you want. Share any tips that you've got for how to give some awesome character descriptions and get comfortable with it down in the comments. Go check out the Doom Stronghold on Kickstarter, and we say these things in their unholy names. Amen.